So, because what I want them to see is how I talk to the guests prior as well before going on. So from beginning to
Okay.
end.
Okay.
So I want them to
So it's a
see kind
behind
of
the
everything.
scenes and the
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it.
I want them to see kind of everything. There we go. So let me just make sure we are on in the group as well. I see that we are in the YouTube page. So welcome everyone to our behind the scenes podcast group teaching session, learning session. So let me just ensure that we are live. Are we live? Hello. I can see my hand waving. Yeah. All right. So as we are going today, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please type them inside of the chat box. Any comments, any questions of that nature, please type them in there. We won't get to hello Facebook user. I don't see the name on it yet, but let me go into it. I see that it says Facebook user, so let me get into that. Okay, here we go. We will not answer the questions during the okay, and I keep getting your name wrong, so I need you to put an enunciation on there. And Tercia and Cecilia Davis, how are you doing? So if you have any questions as we go through this progress, and I'm going to introduce you to our guests in a little while, place them inside the comment box, anywhere in there. We won't answer the questions though until the end, as we are still doing this as a regular podcast, and we want our guests to be able to see that. So again, if you have any questions, any comments, please place them up there. And I see we're getting some viewers coming in. So Tatiana, we can just kind of talk a little bit as well about what we're doing, and I'll kind of prep you to show you exactly what's going to happen. So
Okay.
through this process, what's going to happen primarily is you and I are going to be talking just like this. And then when you go into maybe a portion of what you're referring to, I'm going to highlight you specifically so that you go solo like this. So that way all of the focus is on you. And actually, let me move my thing over here now. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can kind of see this is some of the adjustments we make as we are doing this. So, my logo was covering up portions of her logo. So, I
Oh,
want to make
looks
sure
good. I
that
like it.
focus. Yeah,
I like the logo there.
good, good. Yeah, actually, and it kind of blends in with your color scheme in the back as well. so,
Yes, it
um,
does.
so I adjusted that so that it's over there. And again, that's one of the features that we speak of about in the group when I talk to you about Ecamm, the platform that we're using. And actually, Tatiana uses Ecamm, and that's kind of how we know each other. Full disclosure,
That's right.
we know each other from the Ecamm group, the best streaming platform out there. And I'll mention that to you. But we'll come back and forth. You and I will come back and forth just like this, and then I'll highlight you solo through there. So, ladies and gentlemen, put any questions even through this process. If she says something that, hey, it's a question, go ahead and place that in there. And if you can put a Q in front of it, so that way it separates it from all the other comments that are coming through as well. So, and then the last thing also, Tatiana, is I'm going to do two intros. The first intro is specifically for the YouTube video. And then the second intro I will do specifically for the podcast, and then I will bring you on after the second intro. Okay.
Okay. Because your
And
your
then
ultimate goal is to make separate videos for the two different platforms. So you use one for this, one for the other. Okay.
yes, and I just use the
Got it.
intro for it, but I use the main content in the middle for both. So the only difference is really I have a video that plays prior to the interview for YouTube, and then for the podcast is just strictly the audio for that. So let's see.
Okay.
Also, topics that we're going to kind of discuss, like I sent you, is interpersonal communication, leadership, and public speaking, and then we'll touch on several other different things within that as well. Sounds good to you?
Sounds good to me.
All
Three of
right.
my favorite things to talk about.
All right. Any questions before we start?
No questions for me. Just one thing. I'll mute
Sure.
my mic sometimes when you're
Okay.
talking because I'm getting over being sick. So I'll just mute and try to clear my throat so that I can keep
Perfect.
talking.
Yeah.
Just so you
And
know when you
then
see the mic muted.
absolutely. And then also, just to let you know, I know you know, but for everyone watching, ladies and gentlemen, I also let my guests know that we have an internal chat feature,
Hmm.
so that my guests, if they have maybe an issue, kind of like what Tatiana was just saying, is that they can maybe type something if they need to step away, or if they need to say, hey, can you cover for a few moments, and they don't want to get on camera, say it. So we also have that feature through eCam as well. If that does happen,
Yes.
you will see something like this come up if I need to. Damn. Yeah. So I'll do that.
That's good.
So it'll be a little thing. But I've never really had to do that. I just talk until the person comes back on and tells me that they're ready. Oh, and then really quick before we begin that too, also, Tanya, I want to show you, because remember I told you about the multi feature on Stream Deck. Did you ever figure that
Oh
out, or did you get
yes,
to know that?
I haven't yet, but I do
Okay,
remember.
gotcha. So I'm gonna use that feature on this, and then you'll see it. It's gonna play my name, and then it's gonna jump right into my intro. And basically, what it does is just one button that plays five, six, seven different things in a row, so you don't have to go to
Ah,
the next
that is
scene or
awesome.
whatever. Right?
I love. I really like that for when. Oh, but it's is it scene after scene after scene,
No, you can adjust
or
it
is it
whatever way you want.
overlays within the scene?
Yes, you can adjust it to overlays, sound, scene, back to overlays. You can put five, six, seven, eight different things in there. You can put four overlays in a row, scene, then scene. Yeah, you adjust it to whatever you want. You can have it to just to
That's
do.
very good.
So, like my multi-stream button I'm using right now, it only plays three things. It plays a front clip, music, and then straight into the intro, so that I don't have to do those things separately. Yeah. So,
Very good.
and you'll see it on the second intro right before I bring you on. So, all right.
Okay.
So the first one right now we're about to do is the intro for the video. And ready? And so here we go. Let me bring this up. Let me get to my thing. All right. So, and here we All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here for another episode of J1Q, Just One Question. This episode is being brought to you by the Hustle 1977. For those who grind, you deserve to relax. Why not relax with a glass of smooth tasting brand whiskey? Today's guest we have coming on is Tatiana Rodriguez with Tatiana Teaches. We're talking public speaking. We're going to be dealing with interpersonal communication, leadership, public speaking in general, that fearful subject. So, without any further ado, let's bring on Tatiana. Thank you guys. And cut. All right. So, now we're going to do the intro for the podcast, and then I'm going to bring you on. All right. So, now I'm doing the multi feature. Here it goes. Stream Deck, pressing one button, and
Welcome to Just One Question with your host, Lion Flood. This podcast is brought to you by The Minority Report, where our goal is to inspire, educate, and empower you with cultural knowledge. We'll also have conversations dealing with social justice, mental health, and the all-around truth. So if you're bold enough to hear the truth, then you're listening to the right podcast. Let's find out what that one question is with your host, Lion Flood.
hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Just One Question, that podcast where we are dedicated to education, inspiration, and the all around truth. Today, we have a really special guest coming on. In full disclosure, I know this guest from prior meetings in our groups, but it's still fun and I absolutely love it. And we're talking about a subject that seems to really put the fear in most people. public speaking. So if you've been wanting to learn a little bit more about ways to overcome it, deal with it, then this is the podcast you need to listen to. We're going to cover topics such as interpersonal communication, leaderships, and then public speaking in general. And we're going to find methods that will help you out. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for our guest, Tatiana Rodriguez. Hello, Tatiana. How are you doing?
Hi, hello. I'm feeling great. Had a lot of great
Yes,
family
sir.
quality time, so I'm happy to be here with you today.
Yes, it's that energy that's still kind of just encompassing all of us from all of the family love and all of this. So I'm absolutely excited for you to be here, and thank you for taking the time for coming on and talking to our audience members, especially after the holidays or just kind of in our hemisphere right now. I want to ask you to do me a favor though, because the show notes are going to tell about your bio, it's going to tell about who you are, but it's basically just copied from a website. I wanted you to take a few moments just to let the audience members know a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll jump into those subjects, but let them know who you are.
Okay. Wow. Well, some adjectives I would use is, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, family means a lot to me, partner, I'm a professor at a university, I'm a good friend, and wanted to share these topics in particular because it's something that honestly, if any of you and I met at a coffee shop, this is what inevitably would come up anyway. We would somehow be talking about communication skills, public speaking, leadership, interpersonal issues. It's just the way my life goes. So I'm one of those people that loves to openly share and talk about lessons learned, things from my own past. I also love cooking. So I love food related conversations. So if it's not communication, it's about food as well. And kind of on the Northeast here, it's very cold, and that's something that I'm not too crazy about. I do love to be outside, so I'm trying to get that exercise indoors anyway. So that's a little bit about me, Lion. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that because when I do my podcast and I'm talking with people, and what we're going to be talking about today, I am learning as well because I saw one of your podcasts where you were talking a reference to, I think it's active listening, right? And as people, we hear but we don't directly listen. So I love to learn from my guests as well, and we can talk about food as well. So that's going to be a subject that we're
Yes.
going to get into. so, so I definitely love it. So one of the first things we want to jump into is interpersonal communication. Right now, when I read that, and I'm assuming when most guests or people listening to this hear it, we probably don't have a direct understanding of what it means. Can you break it down for the listeners of what does that mean? How do they apply it to their lives? Jump into it and let us know.
Yeah, we can think about communication in terms of the conversations that we have one to one, and then there's the conversations that we have one to many, which might be more of a public speaking or a conference or a meeting or a family discussion. But the interpersonal part really relates to when we are communicating with people one to one. So that is what I mean when I'm talking about that interpersonal communication piece. Individual to individual conversations.
So now, when we get into this individual and individual, here's the thing that comes into that. So we're going to start with that, and then we'll maybe go into people speaking into groups and then speaking on stage or something. I know I saw in one of your videos, you were referencing some ways to approach people. Like if you're in a different setting or something, like you said, hey, you know what? You love talking about food, so maybe bring that into the subject because now let's imagine if I am at a group setting, I'm brought to a family member's house or a function or a party. I don't know anyone. I don't know what to say, right? People may be coming up to me. Some people are shy and they just reserve and step back. What are some techniques you can say to them to say, hey, this is how you can approach them? Maybe, like you said before, talk about a subject that you're more versed in. What are some techniques?
Well, I would say one of the most important things is to take a bit of a step back before we're thinking about what we're going to say and make sure that we have a really good understanding of ourselves. especially in terms of introversion and extroversion. Because I bring this up because in social events, for a more introverted person, it's not that they don't like people. That's kind of these kind of myths that are out there about introverts. Of course, introverts like people. I think the key difference is that introverted people are not energized by social events like extroverted people are. So an extroverted person would go to a social gathering, and if they're enjoying themselves and having a good time and a good conversation, their energy levels actually increase. If an introverted person goes to the same party, also has a great time, has great conversations, enjoys themselves, their battery levels will still be depleted because an introverted person recharges their batteries by being alone. An extroverted person needs time alone too, but an extroverted person, if they spend a significant amount of time alone, their energy decreases and they need that recharge, social energy, being around others and having good conversations and having a good time, things that they enjoy. So I think number one is really get some clarity about yourself. Are you more introverted? Are you more extroverted? And then also understand that there is such a thing as an ambiverted person also who displays more of these qualities of both. And I think a lot of people, especially as you grow in emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, and kind of balance things out in your life, the idea of being an ambivert probably happens to more people than we think. So understanding where you fall on this scale, and if you are going to go to this party and you are an introvert, have you crafted time to make sure that you're going to recharge your batteries later? Or give yourself permission that you don't have to stay for the 5-hour party. Like, you can stay 2.5 hours. So just having a bit of understanding more about yourself and that self-awareness, I think, is the key step. But to answer your question directly, what are some things you can talk about? Of course, this is going to be specific to every different situation. Because if it's a work party, and if it's let's say you work with a group of graphic designers and creative people, there's lots of cool topics you might be able to bring up. But I myself, this holiday season, attended a party where there were some people that I knew, but most people that I did not know. Inevitably, I do like to ask questions and have conversations. So I think my goal is to find something that we might have in common that I can speak a little bit about, but also really engage the person. So I think the best conversationalists know how to ask great questions. And a tip in the question realm is you can start by asking a close-ended question, which is a yes or a no question, just to kind of bring people into the conversation a bit with very low-level requirements for answers, like yes or no, but don't keep it there. After one or two yes or no questions, ask some more open-ended questions where the answer can't just be yes or no. So instead of saying, have you been to the movies lately? That's a yes or a no question. You can start with that, but then after that say, who are your top 3 favorite actors of the past few years? And then they have to think about it. And then let's just say they list their 3 people. And the goal isn't for them it's not like a check off, like, hey, here's your 3 favorite actors, but rather in that conversation, something else more come up that you can then tap onto, ask another question, and keep making those connections. So building on the questions. But when you're first starting out in these social engagements, it is a good idea to have some questions that you can just pull out handy in your pocket. And to me, food is one of those questions that is easy. It doesn't divide people like some other issues like politics or different legal matters going on in the world that might be a bit divisive or a bit too heavy for initial conversations. So I always recommend start asking about food, especially if you're at a party where there is food. You can always say, have you tasted anything really delicious here? Or if people bring things to the party, you can always say, did you get a chance to bring anything to the party? They might say yes or no, and then you can tap onto that and say, do you enjoy cooking? Is that something that's fun for you? Or would you rather go buy it at the store and be done with it? And then you can engage in a conversation from there. I think that's a tip I shared recently in one of my shorts, So those are a few things I think that will be really helpful to get you started in conversations.
Absolutely love it. And we're going to give it up. Doo, doo, doo. You dropping the dimes on us today. And I think this is a very important subject, especially now because, I don't want to date myself and give my age, but, when I was coming up, we didn't have podcasts. We didn't have this social media being out in front of the world and talking to everyone, right? It wasn't as prevalent. If we did it, it was in a social arena or a stage. Now people can just do it anytime. But at the same time, they may not have been taught some of the proper ways or techniques or things to do that. And I think that's why coaching and people teaching public speaking is very important. And also another thing that we've mentioned is leadership. So when you say you love to talk about leadership, here we are now diving into this. How does that correlate with public speaking as well within that leadership role? Or what do you mean by that when you say leadership?
Mm-hmm. And I'll just chime in that you said you didn't want to date yourself. I'm more than happy to date myself. At 45, I also did not have a lot of the media and technology that we have available today, right? 45 years old. But even people today still need to learn about these things, because even though we do have social media and podcasts, people don't always have the time or know even how to ask the questions or research them. So that's partly why I do what I do, Lion, and everybody listening, is to be a guide, because I do wish that these things were taught to us when we were younger. I really truly wish. And part of the reason that I believe I'm here on earth is to help create some of this content, put together this content, put it out in the world, and teach the things that I do wish we had been taught in high school, college, grammar school. But now let's link that back up to leadership. I think that today we have a much wider view of what a leader is, because it's one of those things like trust and love. It can't just be defined in any one way. Like, leadership is not the person in charge of a group of people. That's not the definition of a leader, because you can be a leader even when you're not the person in charge. Right? Even if you're not at the head of that table, you can still have influence over people. So I talk about these three topics because these are the three courses that I teach and have taught at the college level: leadership course, interpersonal communication, and public speaking. So leadership is really so deeply connected with interpersonal communication, because as a leader, you are dealing with individuals, right? It's not like you become a leader and you only talk to big groups of people. And even if you do, there are still individual human beings in that. So having a deep awareness and understanding of yourself, how you communicate with others, understanding about trust, empathy, service, kindness, creativity, innovation, and emotional intelligence, relationship building. I mean, the topics, we're talking about three very, very big topics that even in an entire semester in college, I never can get through all the things that I want to get through in any of my classes. So we're kind of compacting it here today to just have a bit of an introductory conversation. But the leadership thing that I would like to leave everybody listening to is that leadership is not about position. What I do believe it is about is influence. Who do you have influence over in your life, even if you don't have the title, even if you don't have the degree? I know a lot of people feel held back, even in their own minds, if they didn't achieve a certain degree or at a certain level. So, but that's all not necessary to be a leader either. So leadership is about your desire to serve and your desire to influence. So for example, in my own life, it does not escape me how powerful, how beautiful, what an honor and a privilege it is for me to have the students in my college classroom and know that I have influence as the leader of that course, as the professor in the room. I can help shape their lives, their communication skills, their leadership skills, their public speaking skills, how they connect with others. I'm not there to teach them a lot of teachers feel this way too. I'm not there to teach them what to think, but rather how, and really to explore themselves, like to have this area of personal discovery and also professional development. And I like to do that with on my own platform as well, which is not only for college students, right? That's open to everybody to come and listen and to learn and grow. I think, Lion, in the beginning, you mentioned about you're always learning, and that's what I refer to myself as, a lifelong learner. And I think that's what I have in common with you and people like you who are always wanting to learn and grow, because we are lifelong learners, and there just is no end to how we learn. Now, with leadership, there there is there is a degree of not just the influence that we were talking about, that I mentioned before, because we can have influence but not want to be in a position of leadership. So I think, there's this relationship between the roles, the rules, the levels of influence, the title. But I think ultimately a person who is a leader is willing to take inventory of the group and ask questions, get to know people, and not want to shine a spotlight on themselves, but want to help elevate and shine a light on the people in the group individually. And then, therefore, by doing that, you're also elevating that team, you're elevating that organization. So, to me, a great deal of leadership is always about having strong interpersonal skills, as well as being able to speak effectively in group settings, as well as in one-on-one settings. So to me, those three things are very deeply connected.
I absolutely love that because when it comes down to it, it's like, first of all, let me go back to saying I absolutely love learning. My wife and I, we have this little thing where we'll try to, we have this book that we learn one new word a day or something like that, and we try to see if we can put it into a sentence throughout the day, just to
Oh,
see,
that's
right?
great.
Yeah,
Also,
we
is going to
always
help keep your
want to
brain
try.
sharp as we get older.
Yes, yes, I've read up on things like that. We got to try to keep that going. So now, most people don't realize that those two things are connected, like you said, right? And then they build on each other. Leaderships, there's some natural born leaders, and then there's some who are taught, and then they learn throughout the years. But within that, it comes to a point where now you got to take those things and now we're putting it into that public speaking. So now we're at this point where we got to jump on stage. And before we dive into that, I want to show people just a little bit about. I was looking at your page. So, all of our listeners, you can reach out to Tatiana at Tatiana Teaches. We still use this page, .com. And she has things on there: public speaking, leadership, creativity, and self care, right? You can learn a little bit more about her and see the testimonials and see some of the videos that she places up on there. Your voice matters. I absolutely love that. And it's something that I speak on when I first met my wife and we were dating. And I would tell her, I said, I never want your voice to quiver, even when speaking to me. Never. Your voice, your words, your thoughts, your feelings, they matter to me, and they should matter to someone else. Speak up. We'll develop our ways of learning to talk to each other and communicate in our love language, but never not speak on what you want. And I love that when I saw that on your website. Your voice matters. So now we are here into the actual public speaking portion. Let's break this down because when I think of public speaking, we have people who um, I've always been taught or said, picture them naked when you're up there. I don't know if that works. I don't, but hey, I've heard it a lot. Um, People have to find ways of getting around it. One of my things that helped me when I was performing and speaking is I would cut out magazine faces, big ones, and I would place them on a wall. And as I started speaking and practicing my speech, my whatever, I would look at them and I would make sure I'm, looking left, right, looking in the middle, and then I would put one in the back. And I was always told, speak to the person in the back of the room, so because they are there as well. But What is your public speaking? When you say about this and you're talking to someone, what do you mean by this?
Well, first of all, I just have to say how very beautiful it was that even when you and your wife were developing a relationship, you made sure that she knew that what she had to say was always important to you. So I think that's a really beautiful example of building each other up in an interpersonal way. And I like to do the same thing in the classroom with my students. And I always hope that at the end of the semester, the end of a course, the end of our time together, people leave truly believing, not just thinking, but also believing in their heart that their voice is important, that their voice does matter. So I share that sentiment with you. Now, public speaking, again, it's a huge topic, right? It is so big. But what can I say to you today here that is something that will actually help you become better at public speaking in just a few short minutes? And I think a great definition, concept to understand, and this is the way I start my courses for public speaking too, is we talk about fear and confidence. And if you were sitting with me somewhere right now, doing a lesson, having coffee, I would say, what do you think the relationship is between fear and confidence? So Line, let me ask you, and if anybody is in the chat right now and wants to share with us, what do you think the relationship is with fear and confidence? And I know it's a bit loaded, so even if you just want to throw in a couple of key words, what do you think that is? And Lion, what do you think if I ask you, how would you describe the relationship between fear and confidence?
Yes, let's find that. The relationship between fear and confidence. I would say that they both have to deal with your emotions of where or how you're going to accomplish something, whether you're going to accomplish it badly in a sense or whether you're going to accomplish successfully. So that's my thought process on it.
So what we're able to achieve is directly tied to fear and confidence levels.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can see that connection for sure. And very often when I talk with people, people will say that confidence is the absence of fear, or you get confidence when you've crushed your fears. Like once those fears are gone, that's when the confidence comes. But I want to actually dispel that and remind you that confidence comes by doing this one thing, which is taking action when you are afraid. So they're not opposites. It's not like fear's over here and on the opposite side we have confidence. It's actually, I feel the fear, I take action anyway, and that's how I build more and more and more confidence. So that expression could be, do it even if you're afraid. Do it afraid, and that is what actually builds confidence. Oh, and I see that we have somebody on Facebook who says relationships are very important to keep and communicate. Very nice. Very, very nice. Very important to keep and to communicate with. Yes, there's no doubt that those things are part of that. So, keeping in mind that fear, confidence is not the absence of fear, but rather confidence is the result of taking action even when you are afraid. So with public speaking, it might mean that you're afraid to raise your hand in that meeting and chime in, or raise your virtual hand in the Zoom meeting and speak up. Or maybe it is giving a presentation in front of other people where you have to collect your thoughts and be concise, or maybe even be persuasive and convince other people. Maybe it's in more of a business setting where you want to feel confident sharing your pricing and expressing yourself clearly, directly, valuing yourself. There's so many different ways where speaking comes into practice, especially today. I mean, the opportunities are endless. Even now, me speaking to you is an act of public speaking and communication. So just remember, failure, there's an expression like failure is not an option, it's a requirement. So I think that if we can reframe how we think of failures, right? Mistakes, even. It doesn't have to be such a big word as failure, but even sometimes being scared to make a mistake holds us back. Or I don't like the sound of my voice, or I don't like the way that I look. I don't know what I would say, or I'm not blank enough. Whatever it is that holds you back, just remember the only way to get confidence is to do it anyway. And asking yourself, what would it mean to me to do this? If I could do this, what would it bring into my life? If I could speak up in that meeting, if I could deliver that presentation next time that my group meets on Zoom, or if I can have that conversation with my sibling that I really have been wanting to have, but I've been scared to say this one thing I want to talk about. What would it mean to you, to your life, to your well-being, to your relationships, to be able to say those things, even if you're afraid? And then the opposite, we also need to consider too, is like, what does it cost us when we don't? And to me, that's a big cost, a cost I'm not willing to pay, because I want to be of service. I want to have meaningful relationships. And that means that I need to be able to communicate them, develop those relationships by speaking, standing up in front of my classes, teaching online. These are all acts that are nerve-wracking, but they shouldn't hold you back. And if they feel like they're holding you back, like, reach out, find people that can encourage and elevate you. Now, and remember that, yeah, online, much like we're doing in settings like this, content creators, we're always testing things behind the scenes with people who understand, with people who get it. So there's ways that you can go live unlisted. You can go even on Instagram, right? You can do a live stream privately. Nobody has to see it, but you're doing it as you build confidence. So you don't have to go from 0 to 100 in one day, right? This isn't like you have to go jump off a cliff with a bungee. You don't have to go that extreme. You can just practice taking little steps as you build up. But just remember that you're going to get confidence as you do things, even when you're afraid, rather than allowing that fear to keep you silent and hold you back. Because ultimately, what's the cost? The cost is that your message doesn't get out there. Your relationships don't get stronger. You're not able to express yourself the way that you wish that you could. And it's an unfortunate way to live. Ultimately, most of us are seeking fulfillment, contribution, relationships that are deep and connected and meaningful, being able to speak and to share ideas concisely and in a meaningful way. So I hope that you can take what I'm saying under consideration if you are a person that feels fear, and reframe how you think about it so that it doesn't hold you back, but rather know that you can actually use that fear to help you gain confidence. Frame how you think about it so that it doesn't
I
hold you
absolutely
back, but rather
love
know
that
that you.
because oh, there we had a little extra one come in. I absolutely love that because here's what happens when I hear that right there. Right, I hear so me, for an example, I'm on a other spectrum of kind of what you're referencing there about the practicing going live and so forth. And I I'm working to build a like a coaching and teaching kind of thing in which I say just go live. Now, I know it takes a certain, gumption and person to do that, but I say we live through our mistakes. Just press live, get on there and talk, overcome it. Because sometimes we talk ourselves out of it. And then we got to record it 6 and 7, 8 times to get it correct. So I'm like, just make the mistake. But I absolutely love the spectrum of it because each person has to find that comfort zone for what works for them. And I tell people that all the time. What
Yeah,
one
and
person
that's very
does,
true.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say it's one person works for them and it may not work for you, right? What I do and what someone else does, but you just have to take the step. In public speaking, whether it's in an auditorium, in front of a class, in front of online, like you were saying, it is something that people I think need to work at and to overcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for you coach that. I know you teach that in the professor's level in the college. Where can people, like, maybe if they're interested and they're listening and say, you know what, this is something I've been dealing with. I'm ready to get over it because I want to start a coaching program or whatever. Where can people reach out to find you? Or to
Yeah,
maybe take classes or anything.
absolutely. A few different ways. I do want a few one-on-one coaching sessions, every depending on the number of lessons that people would like, depending on where they're, because everything is individualized, right? So you're on a journey where each of us is on a different journey. So several times a year, I will take on some one-on-one clients and be able to help coach you through those public speaking goals that you have. So you feel like you got somebody in your corner, somebody who knows and has been there. And you can reach me on LinkedIn, hello, Tatiana Rodriguez, or you can email me, Tatiana Teaches at iCloud.com is the direct email address. So lots of different ways that you can find me. I would say LinkedIn or direct email probably the best if you want to talk one-on-one. And then social media channels at Tatiana Teaches also. But definitely some people need that one-on-one level. And then part of my own goals for 2023 and beyond is to create courses online where people can come with their public speaking goals, their leadership goals, their interpersonal communication goals, and take a course online with me and other people live. So that will be coming in the future as well, to be able to do more of a small group or group like courses.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm not going to put it in the forefront right now, but I'm pretty sure at some point you'll be using Ecamm to be doing.
Oh, yeah,
So
no, I use Ecamm now. I use Ecamm to go live every week.
yeah, I tell people all the time, and I speak on it. And of course, sometimes people think, uh, we're just saying that because we're part of Ecamm, and but I tell them, hey, I do have an affiliation with them. I get a portion, but I'm not saying that just to get some funds or whatever. This system is absolutely great. I know also that you do a YouTube channel, and I don't know if you mentioned that, where people can maybe also come and
Yes.
see some of the people who you speak into an interview or whatever process you do. I know you got something
Oh,
coming up
absolutely.
Wednesday or someday at 9 in the morning. I just saw something recently. Touch
Yes,
on that just a little
nine
bit.
nine Pacific, but my time 12 noon. So it's 12 noon Eastern. That would be 9 a.m. Pacific, and I go live on my YouTube channel, Tatiana Teaches, every Wednesday with a different topic. One of the three things we've been talking about: interpersonal communication, leadership, and public speaking. For example, coming up this Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, we're going to be talking about family legacy, specifically. Have we taken the time to really sit down and ask legacy related questions to our older family members? If we thought about where they come from, who they were before we existed, have we really had those conversations? And I have Chris Hunt, who's going to be joining me to share about how it went when he did this, when he asked his father. He discovered things about his father's childhood that had never been brought up before, all by taking a few minutes to ask some questions. And it was transformative, it was meaningful, it strengthened their relationship. He gained new insight and appreciation for his parents that he did not have before this conversation. So now that we're in this, time of tradition and family gatherings, I thought it'd be really good time for us to have a family legacy conversation. So yes, Lion, thank you. On YouTube definitely is another way that people can come and get lots of tips and interviews. So you never run out of content on the channel to talk about, because communication is such a broad topic. And I love to talk, so it just works out really well.
That's right. We always go communicate in some form of fashion, even if it's sign language or body language. Is always some form of communication in there. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, make sure you follow Tatiana Teaches. Go to her page also. If you want to learn more about communication, stick with me for 1 second, Tatiana. I'm going to go ahead and pay some of these bills, and I'm going to be right back with you so we can jump on and kind of finish this up, right? So stick with me for one
Sounds good.
second. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in to Just One Question, the podcast. Well, we're always bringing it to you, right? Educating, inspiration. Stick for us for our next one because 2023 coming up. We have some great things that we're working to push towards and new ideas. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Oh, and before I go, no, let me jump back into this because forgot to ask my guest that one question. So let me come back into it. You still there with me, Tatiana?
I'm here.
Yes.
Yes, Lion.
Okay. So my apologies. So this is okay. So for example, this is your first time here. All my listeners know I'm very transparent. If I make a mistake, it stays in the show, unless it's some absolute bonkers thing that I have to take out. Right? I love being who I am. I make issues, and I forgot to ask you my one question that I
Hmm.
always ask my guests. You might have answered it already, but here it goes. Um, what do you want to be remembered by?
Oh man, way to put me on the deep spot. I I want to be remembered. Hmm. Take a second to think about this.
Yeah, no worry. Take your time.
It makes me think of my nieces and my nephews. When they see me, they light up. They're so happy and there are hugs and I think it's because we share a lot of joy and they know that I deeply care about them and that I love to have fun and help them learn and grow. No surprise, it's very similar in my classroom, right? I'm not expecting my students to be like, hey, but it is really uplifting and exciting for people to have that response when they see you. And so I think that's a result of caring, pouring into, and encouraging others. And so I want to be remembered like when I die, I don't want it to be a sad, I mean, of course, I wouldn't mind people. I don't want people to be happy I'm dead, but I want it to be more of a celebration. So I would like to be remembered as the person who brought deeper meaning and relationships and encouragement to other people's lives, really helping others get to know who they are and how to build strong and meaningful connections with others. I think that I would love for that to be part of my legacy. And I hope that I'm working towards that every day in my own relationships.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I started coming up with this question is because it's kind of like what you said about us redefining and finding those communications and just making each other think. So I appreciate that. Now I can go into my final ending here. I'll be right back with you. Thank you.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for checking into J1Q, the podcast, where we're here for inspiration and education. Without you, I'd be talking to myself, but as my wife always tells me, I probably would like that too much. Anyways, so another 50 points of advice from an 80-year-old. I always end my segments with this is choose your life partners carefully. From this one decision will come 90% of all of your happiness or misery. And as I always tell each and every one of you, please remember to live while you are alive.
Thank you for listening to Just One Question. I know you enjoyed the show because you made it this far. If you want to hear more, subscribe, share, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Now, what's your one question?